Hello, fellas and ladies. I'm still wearing the hat. I like the hat. I'm keeping the hat on. I don't care. Time to continue on with the post-festival and everything actually happening predictions. This week I'm going to do the director category and the 2 screenplay categories. That's all the intro I need. Let's start. Let's start off with best director. I think it's clear what's going to happen. I think we all kind of know where this is going at this point, and it's going to go to Mr. Paul Thomas Anderson. Dude is overdue like no one's ever been before, and it's at the bare minimum he needs to win something. And I think more than anything that we're pretty sure this movie's going to win, it just feels so correct that he would win this big sporadic genre movie with all these big thrills and these big turns using that VistaVision camera. It almost feels right that he would win this as at least one of his first Oscars that he wins after, losing so many times and being one of the best directors alive. I mean, it's not that hard to see why he would win this. It's such a propulsively paced film. It's got that big car chase sequence, got these big set pieces. I don't even think anything is going to come in Paul Thomas Anderson's way. Even if the movie wasn't in the sight to win Best Picture, we're talking about an Academy that nominated him for director for Phantom Thread when nobody else even nominated Phantom Thread for Best Picture. Now, after Paul Thomas Anderson, which is secure in my head, I have never been more scared of a director lineup in my life, because after Paul Thomas Anderson there are 6 directors that I'm like, oh my god, they're absolutely getting in. That's a lock, 100%. It's over. But I only have 4 slots, meaning that at least 2 people that I think have everything going for them will miss. What do I do with that information? Now, let the record reflect that I am not a stats person. I don't care if since 1947 a director whose name starts with a J always get. I don't care about any of that shit. That's not me. I think when you get into the grit of that, you ignore everything else. So I choose to ignore stuff like that, which is why you're going to see some things that I say that are like, what? But if I were to say someone else is next in line to Paul Thomas Anderson, I go in somersaults with this between Josh Safdie and Ryan Coogler. They both are so obviously, in my head, getting in. But again, so is most of these people I'm talking about. But I am going to say Josh Safdie in number 2, only because, how last year was about these big indie directors making these massive films, and that was being celebrated. I think that's who Josh Safdie is to a T. Him and his brother being 2 of the best filmmakers of our time. And, here's Josh Safdie making this big, epic sports movie with a bunch of weird shit going on. Apparently it doesn't really make sense for me to think that Marty Supreme is going to be huge at the Oscars and that he doesn't get director. That doesn't track for me, and I think it's super easy for the industry to have so much respect for Josh Safdie and Benny for that matter, that you give them the opportunity to nominate their movie big time. They're gonna get in director without hesitation. But then you got Ryan Coogler, who I had winning up until One Battle After Another. Ryan Coogler, I know that people are gonna say, Dune, Denis Villeneuve missed. Greta Gerwig, she missed for Barbie. And I just don't think this is the same. I just think those films are yes, this is a very big genre film. But I've been saying it all year, I'm gonna say it again. The big difference that keep in mind, Dune took place in a fictional universe, a planet called Arrakis. Barbie took place in fucking Barbie land. Sinners takes place in Jim Crow, Mississippi. This is a auteur film. Not saying Dune and Barbie are not, but this isn't being degraded as anything but an auteur film just because it has vampires in it. It's too much like Ryan Coogler's moment for him to just miss this. I can't picture it, but at the same time, I can say that about most of these people. Coogler is just having such a great year, and Sinners was such a moment for cinema and him that him missing just doesn't click for me. I take him out and I just feel gross. And I know some people are just prepping themselves for disappointment, but to that I say, I think Sinners is holding on in a way that people aren't giving it credit, and I think that to pull Ryan Coogler out is a little reactionary. Now, again, I'm saying that there are 7 people that make a lot of sense, Like, something's gonna go that doesn't make any sense. But in my head, Coogler still doesn't make sense to miss. He makes the third most sense to get a big Oscar nomination. I do think Chloe Zhao will get in for Hamnet. I think Hamnet is, like, these are my top 4 films for the Oscars. One battle after another. Sinners, Marty Supreme, and Hamnet are my top 4. So, I guess I should have them all in my top 4 for director. Coogler could miss BAFTA, I get that, but I also think we overestimate how like, I guess pompous BAFTA is. And then again, Sinners isn't Sinners, like, well, why wouldn't that, like, be highbrow? And then Chloe Zhao, like, I mean, we're talking about the only winner here. Like, about this visually poetic, like, film that's making everybody cry. That's such a director feat film, not to a one battle in Sinners way. It's not a spectacle film, of course. But, this is a highbrow branch, and I think that it would be a little strange for them to skip out on a film like Hamnet, for a director that they've already awarded. So that leaves the last slot, and as you can tell, it's between the 3 Neon directors. Park Chan-wook for No Other Choice, Jafar Panahi for It Was Just an Accident, and Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value. I think if you're going to go the route of, It Was Just an Accident and Sentimental Value went to Cannes, so there you go. It's easy. It's them two. And I don't know. I find, like I said, stats like that just are a little silly to me. Like, to say that if Sentimental Value had, like, not been ready in time for Cannes and premiered at Venice, that would have changed its fate a little bit. To me, it's easy right now to say that Sentimental Value is the strongest of these films, but I also do think that Sentimental Value will never miss Best Picture, but it will, I think, start to go down a little bit. And between Joachim Trier, Park Chan-wook, and Jafar Panahi, it's very easy to see that Joachim Trier is, on face value, the director with the least urgency to get in. Joachim Trier is someone who, like, is very well regarded, but not to the degree that Panahi and Park Chan-wook are. And while The Sentimental Value is a very flashily directed film, it's less flashy than It Was Just an Accident, No Other Choice, I guess. That being said, like, this is such director branch bait. Like, it doesn't make sense that I have Joachim Trier missing. Like, it doesn't make sense. But this is where we're at. Like, any other year, I'd have him at number, 4 or 3. But I do think that because I do think Sentimental Value is losing, like, a little bit, like, not enough to be worried about the movie, but, like, enough to be like, oh, maybe, like, the director could lose out in, like, a very stacked race. Because then you have Jafar Panahi and Park Chan-wook. Now, if you want to go the Cannes route, then I'm inclined to point out that Venice typically, like, premieres a film that blows the fuck up and becomes just humongous, and typically they become director nominees. And while y'all were twisting yourselves into knots pretending it was Jay Kelly, No Other Choice bulldozed. And Park Chan-wook getting in for his first Best Picture nominee makes a whole lot of sense. Talking about, easily, of the 3 Neon directors I mentioned, easily the most quote-unquote overdue. He is the one with, like, the most industry cred, I would say. I mean, like, with all due respect, I'm willing to take a gamble and say most voters, this is their first Jafar Panahi film. But I do got to acknowledge that Jafar Panahi, winning that Palme d'Or, is, like, does put a lot of, like, emphasis on It Was Just an Accident, and the way that film is directed, especially, like, with that unforgettable 20 minutes. It is, like, a good reason to maybe say Jafar Panahi has the edge over these 3. But why would I predict No Other Choice in Best Picture and not predict Park Chan-wook in director? I don't know. Realistically, I've been, like, going in circles between these 2, to be completely honest, for a while now. Not really sure which one of them has the edge. Neon is doing their damnedest to bring both of them everywhere that they can, because Jafar Panahi and Park Chan-wook are everywhere on the circuit right now. But the reason I decided to lean Panahi is I do feel like there is a little bit more, like an expectation to see Jafar Panahi in director than there is for Park Chan-wook. I do think Neon is doing an incredible job of making sure that people realize, obviously what he's been through, which I think most people know at this point, but also that this is, like, a film that is a miracle that it exists. Granted, Park Chan-wook is on the circuit too, but Jafar Panahi, Neon's done an outstanding job of making him, like, front and center in a lot of ways. With that also said, if Panahi doesn't get the Golden Globe, I think we gotta just gut him. because BAFTA is by no means guaranteed to go with Jafar Panahi. I think guilds are likelier to be a little more polite to know whether choice is sentimental value than they are for it was just an accident. Yeah, that's the other thing about hot takes, that Park Chan-wook actually has a pretty good shot at DGA as opposed to Panahi, who has next to none, and Trier, who has an okay shot at DGA. But I do think that this branch might favor Panahi. I think of anyone else in the Academy, I think that they are the most likely to have watched Jafar Panahi's other films. And while I do think more voters have definitely seen Old Boy than The Taxi, I do think that either way they've done Neon's done an excellent job of making Panahi feel like is his time, even if people are finding who he is. I've known who he is for a while. I really hope that this comes to fruition. But for most voters, this is their introduction to him, and what an introduction it's been. After that 7, I think it gets pretty bare. I think easily next in line is Guillermo del Toro. I mean, Frankenstein's really popping off. It's very easy to see that Frankenstein's just getting Best Picture. Now, do I think that Guillermo del Toro gets in? I don't know. I think most people have caught on that he might get DGA if they don't want to go with any of the Neon international titles. But Guillermo del Toro's not going to get, really a lot of benefits from critics, unlike likely Park Chan-wook, Jafar Panahi, and maybe Joachim Trier. I don't know if Joachim Trier does that good with critics, but he might do solid, actually. Del Toro would have to be an industry, pull, and I don't know, other than DGA, where he's going to get, pulls. Critics' Choice could go with him, but that'll depend on A, how many slots in director they decide to have this year, but also B, if they decide to do the international titles outside of Joachim Trier. They're definitely going with Trier, but Jafar Panahi and Park Chan-wook, no guarantees. I think Frankenstein might be an example of the kind of genre films that tend to miss out on director, but I do think that Guillermo del Toro being on the helm gives it an edge. I don't know, it's tricky. I don't think he'll actually happen, to be honest, but if I think he's getting DGA, which I might think he does, then I think he has to be acknowledged. Then you got James Cameron for Avatar Fire and Ash. I think Avatar was going to run into a problem of it's about the same. And if Way of Water, which had a 13-year gap, can't overcome that, then what's Fire and Ash's 3-year gap gonna do? It does feel like Avatar is eventually gonna run into it's that again type of thing, and eventually Avatar's gonna miss out on picture entirely. But it is James Cameron. I gotta consider him a little bit. From here on out, these are just complete speculation. Kleber Mendonca feel like makes a lot of sense in theory, but he's also number 4 for Neon. I think for him to get in at this point would be pretty crazy because there's a lot in director, and Secret Agent is I don't know, not really looking like it's getting in. So for Secret Agent to catapult into Best Picture in a way that pulls Kleber Mendonca Filho in, that would be pretty crazy. Same thing kind of applies to The Testament of Anne Lee and Mona Fastvold. If I were to say Anne Lee gets into picture, I don't know, it would be weird for Fastvold to miss. However, Anne Lee is looking like a bottom tier at best, even if it somehow gets into picture. Begonia, even if that gets into picture, it would not get Yorgos Lanthimos in. Now with Jay Kelly, I heard Noah Baumbach's direction is pretty big, actually, bigger than he's typically known for. But Jay Kelly is again it's barely gonna scrape in, even if it does, and I'm really just not feeling that Jay Kelly is gonna have this big comeback. So I'm gonna take him and say, nah, John M. Chu is not happening. Absolutely not. You want to talk about genre films that can't get into director? This guy, not Ryan Coogler. This. I don't even think Critics' Choice are going to nominate him this time. That's my hot take. And then Clint Bentley for Train Dreams. I mean, it's definitely deserving and definitely has the stuff, but Train Dreams is going to barely get in. So I don't know if that's director. Let's go on to Best Original Screenplay. I think the top 4 is pretty secure. And then number 5 is really, really tricky. I do have Sinners out at front still. I think Coogler winning no Oscars is a strange thought in my head, and I think it's easy to give him original screenplay. I think of that movie more as a director feat than a writing feat, but it is being the highest grossing original film in God knows how long helps. This being the year of Coogler, getting him something just makes a lot of sense to me. But it's also not the flashiest script in the world. It's a movie that's flashy in ideas, but its script itself, it does have a lot of quotable lines in it that people have been using a lot. Okay, maybe. After that, I do have Marty Supreme. I think that's number 2 only because I think that film is, again, a little more flashy, I guess. I'm assuming. I've heard. I haven't seen it yet. I'm hoping to see it very, very soon. But that's just the vibe I get. I've seen the theory start to take off that it was just an accident will win original screenplay. I can get behind that theory. I get it does make sense to me. However, I am inclined to lean towards it not winning, only because I think the comparisons here. First of all, Sinners is going to win the Critics' Choice. That's a done deal. I think the idea is it's going to win Golden Globe and then BAFTA, like Anatomy of a Fall. And to that, I would say, Anatomy of a Fall was a hardcore top 5 film, and it was a layered mystery courtroom drama. I don't think it's quite the same. It Was Just an Accident is a brilliant film, but also I think part of its brilliance is that it comes off as rather simple. But I do see the idea. It is a film that like kind of works on like screwball comedy logic while being super dark. It's got these ridiculous ideas like in its structure. You know, I don't think it's impossible, but I feel like Sinners, I think if the idea is, oh, we gotta give it to this guy who win an Oscar, I feel like Coogler in this category has a bit of the edge. And then finally, I think Sentimental Value is absolutely getting in, but it's absolutely not winning. Sentimental Value is just not really getting into winning conversation outside of maybe supporting actor and international feature. And that's just what it is. But that being said, Sinners, Marty Supreme, It Was Just an Accident, Sentimental Value, in whatever order you want, those 4 are getting in. It's what happens after that it's really hard to tell. Because, like, everything that like is getting into that 5th slot that I am contending for is either like the only nomination they're getting or in contention to be the only nomination they're getting, or like isn't really what the like I don't know. Like there's a couple options here, but I'm going with The Secret Agent. I think it's not lost on me that I'm predicting 3 Neon International titles for original screenplay. That's not lost on me. I don't really know what to put in that last slot, but I do think that The Secret Agent is like a film with a lot of passion. It just so happens to be the 4th most passionate Neon title. But compared to what everything else that's coming, like that's next in line, maybe it is just The Secret Agent that makes the most sense to me. It being this dense, like, political thriller that, like, slowly reveals itself as the movie goes on. Like, a lot of people love this movie. Maybe it's that. There's a couple other options that I'm playing with. The next one that's close that I almost went with is Blue Moon. It makes a lot of sense. I'm really confident Ethan Hawke is going to get in. More confident than Wagner Warren, to be honest. Blue Moon's got these really big monologues and this really flashy dialogue that Ethan Hawke is murdering. But I also get the vibe that Blue Moon's attention is going so directly towards Ethan Hawke that I don't quite know if this would have to come along. It could. It would make sense. It's already got a nomination that's looking really good. It makes sense to pull another one with it. And an element that people really like. So I'm not opposed to this. I really like did laps on this one, really between these two, Secret Agent and the Blue Moon, really thinking like which one makes the most sense. And I lean on The Secret Agent just because I think The Secret Agent is a film that while it probably won't get picture, it does have a lot going for it in a way that when you have this open 5 slot, the passion pick comes in, and I think that's what The Secret Agent is. A couple other options. One of them is A House of Dynamite, which is looking pretty dead, but I think here's a category that I do still think could get it like randomly. Like it's its only nomination potential. Like it's the only thing it has left. But it is like a pretty hardcore political thriller of like these government officials talking really fast and saying government things. But yeah, a lot of people don't like it or the ending, so I don't know, maybe not. I definitely buy it more than I buy Jay Kelly here. More than that, I believe that like Jay Kelly getting this as his only nomination, it feels a little off to me. I haven't seen it. I don't really know what's going on with Jay Kelly as a movie, but it seems like it getting a lone screenplay nom is like feasible, but like not as like much sense as it would for like a movie like A House of Dynamite. Weapons is something I've really thought about. I mean, again, you when you have such a wide open slot, passion starts to come in, and I don't think Weapons quite is that film. It is a film with a lot of original ideas and like concepts, and if we think Amy Madigan could get in, I don't know, maybe we can entertain this. But you know, it is a horror film, only getting an original screenplay. That, I don't know, that's something to ease into. I need to see something happen first for me to believe it. After that, not a lot to really play with. Is this thing on? I might be seeing it soon, so I can get a better look at it, but I don't know. I don't think it has to. Sorry Baby would be amazing, but I don't know who's going to do it. And I need to see someone do it first. And then Materialists, yeah, I think WJA could do it, so we'll see. And then for adapted screenplay, once again, I think that One Battle After Another and Paul Thomas Anderson feel pretty good for this award. It is not lost on me that I'm very, very secure in Paul Thomas Anderson winning Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Director, which could only mean that Best Picture is secure as well. Which, in a way, I do feel like that is true. But, like, then again, one battle after another. Again, genre frenzy and, like, a film with already these big, funny scenes and, like, these big, flashy, like, dialogue moments. There are so many lines that are already, like, super quotable. And people are just constantly, like, saying as remembrance for the film. So why wouldn't this win Adapted Screenplay for a film that's likely winning Best Picture and is still an overdue guy who, you know, him finally winning an Oscar and him just sweeping house makes a lot of sense. I will say, I think that if Paul Thomas Anderson were to either lose this or director, I think this would have the edge. But let's play devil's advocate a little bit and say, who's next in line? Because director, I don't know. This one, I have an idea. I think, controversially possibly, I think next in line is No Other Choice. I don't know, maybe Park Chan-wook could gain steam and win. It does make sense. Like, a movie like No Other Choice winning screenplay makes so much sense. Once again, a genre film, an overdue filmmaker, a bunch of commentary. That makes so much sense to win, and he will get in here, I think, as a nomination. I don't think he'll actually beat Paul Thomas Anderson, but I think this category is No Other Choice's foot in the door. Like, I think there's no real reason to think that this will actually miss, and I think that it's so obvious to see why. It's a big, flashy, like, script about a lot of things, a lot of ideas. So I think this is definitely happening, and I think Hamnet is also, like, for sure a nomination. I don't really foresee it winning. It doesn't really make, like, a lot of sense for me to say that, like, this would win screenplay. I knew Nomadland was never going to win screenplay, and I feel like this is the same thing. A lot of it is, like, in the visuals. But it's definitely getting in as part of the Hamnet package. The script is really good, and it's about William Shakespeare, after all, so. After that, I do think Wake Up Dead Man will continue the Knives Out trend of being a lone screenplay nomination. Again, people love this movie, and it's just as twisty and big and, like, all these big political ideas as the other two, and I don't see why this will slow it, like, this will make the franchise slow down. Now, for fifth slot, if I was being smart, I'd say Frankenstein. Frankenstein, I am very happy to say, is being treated as a Mary Shelley adaptation, not like, oh, a Universal monster movie. And it's got, like, really dense dialogue and these big ideas going on, and it could get screenplay as part of the passion, like, with this film. I think, realistically, this is number 5. But I really want to predict Train Dreams somewhere. Train Dreams is a film that just keeps on picking up love. And every time it plays at a festival, or now playing for press, and now in theaters, people just kind of go like, whoa, I loved that movie. And I think that'll result in something. Maybe I'm wrong and it gets goose egg, but like, this and cinematography are very on the table. And I think that this is going to have a grassroots push. And maybe it doesn't land in picture after all. But I think screenplay is one that does track. I get, like Hamnet, a lot of the film is, like, built on its visuals, but there is definitely screenplay going on. So that's maybe a bit of a swing I'm taking with this. Maybe I should predict Frankenstein, but I'm gonna stick with Train Dreams because I think passion matters, and I think Train Dreams gotta get something, and it clicked at something that makes sense to me. Begonia also makes a lot of sense, but I think that film is really just lost almost all of its steam. I think maybe Critics' Choice will nominate it still, but I mean, screenplay makes sense. You know, it's a chamber piece where, like, dialogue heavy writing with, like, something political to say. That makes sense, and it's got these big sci-fi ideas. Not really big, I guess. So, you know, I can entertain this, but I think Begonia is really just kind of, like, almost fizzled. Like, it's out, and it just feels like no one's really, like, people really like it, but no one's really grabbing it. And then after that, just kind of spinning my wheels here. Wicked is not happening. Like, why the fuck would this one get in? No. The Running Man, I heard it's great. As an Edgar Wright fan, we win, but I don't know. I'm just putting it in there for fun because, like, hey, Stephen King adaptation. Human Life of Chuck, that's just not happening. Die My Love, I don't know where that would take off. Springsteen's Dead. Nuremberg, maybe? You know, being this political war thing. I don't know, like, maybe. I won't count it out. Like, it could be that Oscar bait thing that happens, but that's what I got for you today. Hopefully next one will be acting, but I want to see Jay Kelly first. That's what I got for you. Like, subscribe, share. Bye-bye.